How can you prove your value to a buyer before they even engage you? This is a question that I recently received from a consultant during an online training that I was holding, and I thought it was a great question, so I wanted to share the perspective and some of the thoughts that I offered during that training with you here as well today. So why is this important? Well, value, right, is at the heart of everything that you do as a consultant. The more value that a buyer sees that you are providing or able to provide it to them, right, the more value that they perceive, two things happen. Number one, they're more likely to invest at a higher level with you, right? Because if they see more value, they're then willing to invest more to receive that value. But the other thing that happens is that you yourself become more valuable in their eyes, right? Your expertise, your knowledge, your experience, everything that you bring to the table resonates with them more, or increases, I should say, the value that they associate with you. And so increasing the level of value that your buyer, that the ideal client sees or attaches to you is paramount. So let's talk about the two things that will help you to do this. So number one, the first thing for you to work on and to ensure that you have you're able to communicate the greatest value to a prospective buyer is to make sure that you are focusing on identifying value in the initial conversation with the buyer, and as well as subsequent conversations, right? So this is like the first thing that you do, and it's all about the questions that you ask. If you ask great, deep, meaningful, thoughtful questions in your conversation with an ideal client, not only will you be able to identify more value about their situation, about how you can help them to solve their problem, about how great things will be, when you put the solution into practice, and what happens if they don't move forward right now, and what impact it'll have on them and their market share and everything else, right? So that's really about the identification of value, and that happens in the conversation that you have with a buyer, right? You go beyond the surface level and you go deeper to the core. It's like you have an onion, right? You peel back the layers of the onion, and at the heart, at the core, that's where the real value is. And so the first part of this is identifying the value that your ideal client cares about, and then be able to communicate that value back to them, right? And so the dynamic here is that in addition to you being able to identify value in that conversation, by you asking deep, meaningful, thoughtful questions to your ideal client, what happens is in their mind, they go, wow, this conversation with you is really valuable. You're asking them questions that nobody else has asked them before. You're helping them to see things that they never maybe pieced together, right? And so even just that conversation starts to communicate and convey value, and they associate that to you. So that's number one. Number two is in terms of how you can really communicate and establish value before an engagement, it comes down to your content and your intellectual property, right? If you have a thoughtful article, or if you have a really great video, or if you've done a webinar, an online training, or you have a piece of your work published in some magazine or trade publication, or you step on stage and you speak to an audience, right? You write a book. I mean, there's so many ways these days to create content and to deliver your intellectual property, but this is a very powerful way to establish value. And it's because it's one thing for you to say that you're great and that you're capable, but it's very different for you to demonstrate that through your content, right? Through the development of intellectual property. And so the more that you do of that, the more consistently, the more powerful, the more valuable you make that content, the more value that your ideal clients will associate to you. And you've likely seen this before. If you look at the authors or the business people that you admire, they likely have a lot of content. They likely have invested time, energy, resources to develop their intellectual property, whether it's a podcast, whether it's books, whether it's videos, whether it's whatever, right? And so you can do the same, and you should be doing the same if you want to be able to communicate more value. So again, the two big factors that will really help you to communicate, and I shouldn't say even just communicate, to establish greater value in the eyes of your ideal client, for them to perceive greater value and to associate that to you before you even start the engagement, is number one, for you to ask great questions in that initial sales conversation, as well as all subsequent conversations. And number two is for you to develop your content and your intellectual property. And then of course, once they engage you, you'll have a lot of opportunity to demonstrate value right during the engagement. But really what we're talking about here today are the two ways that you can do it before an engagement begins. So number one, in the conversation. Number two, your intellectual property and content. Focus on those, implement those, and you will be able to create significantly higher perception of value.